Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to SF Takes on Tourism, the second episode. Thank you, everyone, for attending the live version. Thank you especially to those returning from last week. We really appreciate the support.
Yeah.
A couple housekeeping items. Well, actually, wait, no. First of all, we don't have our welcome music yet, so let me just say I'm Daniel, and
I'm Hubertus. It's good to have you back. Good to see you, Daniel. Number two.
Good to see you. Yeah, we have two Dannys today. Well, one Danny,
Yeah.
one Daniel. Good to see you too, Hubertus. So a couple quick housekeeping items before we jump in to today's topic. We do have our microsite up on sftravel.com. So you can go there and see all the recordings of the episodes. You can rewatch them, or if you missed one, you can watch one. You can also register for the next one while we're still using this live format. So check that out. And if there's also a link that you can subscribe to our travel trade newsletter to make sure that you will get notified when the next episode, the registration link is up. We invite everybody to send ideas for topic speakers. You're also welcome to send a question ahead of time so we can start asking guests for next week's episode. And we are still working on getting up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're also working on that welcome music. So production is in progress, and we hope to be up there within the month. So fingers crossed that'll happen. And a reminder to tune in next week. Hubertus, what do we have going on next week on the podcast?
So next week we have somebody, one of our friends from Visit California, join us, hopefully. So we'll talk a little bit about the plans that Visit California has for recovery, some of the campaigns that are planned, kind of how they see their recovery. So that should be really interesting and exciting.
Perfect. Well, I'm very excited for this week's episode. It's on aviation. I am an av geek. We talked about that term last week. I've always loved flying. I love airlines. It's one of my favorite parts about working in the airline industry. I myself used to work for an airline. I worked for Etihad Airways. That's actually what brought me out to San Francisco. Fun fact, that's how I met Hubertus. Come to think
That's
of it.
right. I know.
Yeah,
at SFO.
At SFO. I don't remember the meeting, like the
so
38R meeting room, I think it was.
Yeah.
So
I'm not an av geek. Maybe I'm an av. Do I qualify as an av geek? Probably not. I think
so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I know a lot about flying, but
you
maybe I'll
do.
become one after this.
Pay attention to what planes you're on and what seat you're on.
I do. And I haven't been on a flight in a while now. And talk about an industry that has been impacted by this crisis. So, which is why we wanted to talk about it a little bit and get different perspectives from the airline side, but also from the airport side, and really see how things are going and how recovery looks for airlines moving forward.
Yeah, they're really getting hammered, and we'll pull out
yeah.
some numbers in a moment. Really excited. We have two excellent guests today, both from the aviation industry.
Mm-hmm.
One works for an airline, that's Danny from United Airlines, and our good friend Melissa from SFO. So we'll be introducing them in just a few minutes, but they're going to really help us understand what's going on behind the scenes at airlines and airports right now, kind of give us some tips on marketing strategies and tactics for airlines and airports and what we can learn from them, what's going well, what's maybe not. And so a great topic, definitely timely. But you mentioned that the airline industry is really getting killed from the coronavirus, from COVID-19. I saw all sorts of figures. What's the kind of situation right now? Just a quick snapshot.
So the latest number I heard is that the total losses for the aviation industry globally will hit at about $84 billion for the entire year of 2020. So that's probably, I know the crisis sort of hit like March, right? So they probably had a very healthy January, February. But yeah, $84 billion, that's incredible. Wow. So we know that many airlines reduce their seat capacity and their overall capacity by up to like 80% in some cases. We heard of some airlines kind of folding entirely. So I think it's still a fluid situation. So we're really curious to hear from United, one of the world's biggest airlines, what's happening in their field. But obviously this industry has been really impacted significantly.
Yeah, I remembered hearing just as an example, that United flew more passengers in one day in April last year any given day in April last year than they did for the entire month of April this year, which I think is
It's
really
crazy.
representative of
Yeah.
how bad it got. And looking back a year though, it's not like at least for the U.S. airlines, a lot of them are doing quite well. So
Yeah.
for example, Delta reported $47 billion in revenue last year, a record, with a $4.8 billion profit in 2019. I mean, that's actually a super profitable business. That's not just like, Amtrak, where they're giving a service and a utility for the country. I mean, they were making a lot of money, so they've really fallen. I wonder if they'll be able to get back.
Well, did you know that basically the number of people flying basically doubled between 2006 and 2019?
Wow.
To like 4.5 billion people in 2019, and 2020 was supposed to be another record year. So I think the only year that they didn't see growth was during the great financial crisis in 2008-9. But other than that, I mean, I find that number staggering. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know a lot of that was coming from Asia and China, but I mean, we're, working with SFO, and how many new flight launches have we attended and worked on marketing campaigns for them over the past 5 years alone? I mean, I can't count them. There's dozens and dozens. So, well, I'm really curious to see if they'll be able to make money again and what their strategy will be. I saw an interesting headline. So British Airways is now selling artworks to try to do some fundraising. I thought this was interesting. Definitely a new revenue
really
stream
interesting.
for airlines.
I saw that you talked about that. I mean, is that like the new thing to do then? And where did they have artwork? In their lounges, or I don't even know.
I guess they owned these pretty well-known artworks, and they decided that, listen, if they're going to be laying off tons of workers and have no revenue coming in, they got to look at everything. So I don't know what's next. I mean, are airlines, going to start? I have no idea how they're going to start making money. I think that'll be really interesting to see how creative they can get. What they can do with their planes. Like, will they start turning some of their planes into private planes? Will they, carry more cargo? I have no idea.
Maybe new configurations, like all business class or something like that. That has happened in the past. Now, I was just trying to think when my last flight was. I think that was in February, maybe. But I know that you've been on a couple of flights, so just recently. So what's the new normal? Is there a new normal?
Yeah, I was on I needed some material for this podcast, so I decided to fly yesterday, actually.
Thanks for doing that.
So I am quarantined here in New Jersey. I'm quarantined. I'm away from everybody. It was quite the experience. For one, just notable at the airport, the emotions flying around. I mean, I almost started crying myself. Everybody's hugging each other, like on both ends, both the leaving and the arriving experience. Just a lot of emotion out there. Clearly, people have been away from their families for a long time, so I thought that was interesting. Passengers, the airport, I thought was a pretty good experience. People definitely kept their distance more or less from one another. There are obviously these moments where it's very difficult to, like on the jet bridge, but people were respectful. You definitely see the gamut of approaches. People in full hazmat suits that you don't even see in the emergency rooms, and other people like kind of barely have a mask on, or the airline kind of hands them one before they board. So you get that range, but it was otherwise a pretty good experience. Sanitation, they're definitely trying to highlight that, and we'll talk about that a little bit with Danny. I have some questions for him around United and some of their partnerships with like Clorox. They made that very clear. They hand you a wipe when you get on board. So yeah, I will say the plane was very full, which I was okay with, but I think some people might have been uncomfortable with. However, they give you the option to change. So I thought that was positive. And just another sign of the times, as we were taking off, there was this line of planes at Houston Airport. I mean, there must have been 3730 or all sorts of planes lined up, just parked on the runway. Tried to capture it in an image. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in speaking to colleagues and friends and family, like, where can I go? Where is it safe to travel? So one tool we found, and we'll share that with the group afterwards, is this interactive map that IATA, the official airline association, is updating or keeps updated all the time. You can literally click on any country and get all kinds of information. Is there self-quarantine that needs to be adhered to, or is there a total travel ban or whatever it may be? So that might be helpful too, because I think,
Yeah.
For people, they still need to sort of have that assurance that they can travel again. So
yeah, for consumers especially, that's super helpful, and for people in business.
yeah.
A couple other resources I'll just quickly point out. The ARC has a public trends article that they update every single week. A colleague of mine at SFO sent that over to me. I find it really useful. It just shows you the growth in tickets and the year-to-date difference between 2019 and 2020. This week in 2019 versus 2020, you can see us kind of inching back toward travel and where it's taking place. Is it leisure, business, etc.? And the other one I'll mention is OAG has been publishing some really good information about the people's comfort with flying. I think the last score out of 30, a big survey sample from 33 countries, the average score was 3.8 out of 10. 10 is confident and 1 is fearful in terms of how safe flying is.
So we'll share all of that information afterwards.
Yeah.
I know that one term that has been floating around over the last few weeks is this term air bridge or air bubble. So that's kind of an interesting new concept. I think it's pretty much starting in Europe, where basically countries create these safe travel corridors from one country to another. By traveling there, you don't have to adhere to any self-quarantine or any other restrictions. So I think now, in light of the summer season starting and people really wanting to travel, that's kind of something that we'll see more probably over the next few years.
I know. Maybe we can ask Melissa. I know SFO is in talks with Heathrow, for example.
I know,
about creating an international air bridge, which I think could be really interesting too, because you have all this pent-up demand. And I think for a lot of consumers, as soon as they hear that it's safe, a lot won't, but a lot are willing to then jump on that plane and say, okay, I'm going.
I am ready to go again. Fingers crossed. So should we bring our first guest on?
Yeah, let's do that.
So we'll have Daniel Cuellar from United Airlines. He's the director of global brand advertising, and it looks like you're a true airline person. You've been with Continental United for 20 years, it seems. You started your career in advertising with like big agencies, but now you're like a true-blooded, full-blooded airline person. So we're really excited to have you. And you're based out of United's headquarters in Chicago.
Yes, that's the headquarters right there.
We can see the beautiful skyline in the background. I think that's your office building, right, where you are? Wonderful. So, well, congratulations to your anniversary first,
Thank
20
you.
years.
2 weeks.
Yeah. And we're glad to have you. And
Thank you for having me.
Excited to talk to you about kind of what's happening in your space.
Well, before we jump in,
we don't have any artwork to sell, so.
No, I know.
I mean, I think you could probably fetch about what, $10 for one of those model 737s or 777s on eBay.
Is that it? Okay.
Okay, maybe a little more. Maybe the Continental livery probably goes for 50. That's like an antique.
Probably.
So, Daniel, quick icebreaker for you before we jump into some of the more technical questions. Your most memorable flight and why? And I will ask you to keep that G rated.
All right. Most memorable flight probably wasn't too long ago, actually. If you're an aviation geek, you know that United Continental actually owns or operates the Island Hopper, which is from Honolulu to Guam every few days via 5 Micronesian islands. Some of the craziest views out of an airplane window you'll ever see. Runways that kind of start and stop in the water, and just a really cool experience. Some of the best beaches and diving in the world on those islands. So that was definitely an experience. Really cool.
Is that available to? Can anybody book? I mean, normally is that? Yeah, right. I've heard about that.
Anyone can do it.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So Daniel, do you think? Well, actually, before we get into the recovery, I just thought of a new slogan for you guys. Fly the clean skies. Has this been floated around? Are you thinking of changing your brand at all to reflect the new reality? Can you also tell us a little bit about this Clorox United brand partnership that I saw flying around all over? And does that reflect any changes to the flying experience? I know that was a few questions in one.
Yeah, I'll start with the Clean Plus partnerships. It was something that I think we're all pretty proud of. You've seen a lot of the airlines, frankly, saying a lot of the same things. We all have HEPA filters. We're, going to electrostatic spray the planes. We're cleaning everything 1,000 times over. But I think the Clorox and the Cleveland Clinic partnership for us really, I think, set us apart. The validation of those brands willing to attach themselves to us, that is it's a huge peace of mind for customers to know that, the credibility of those brands and those initiatives. Cleveland Clinic isn't just going to throw their logo anywhere. They're helping us with pre-flight screening checklists. Clorox, a lot is going on in the airports and working on rolling out more as product is available. But it's been a big hit. The PR was frankly fantastic for it. And I think in a time where people are really, really uncomfortable, seeing those brands, and like I said, the credibility they bring helps a lot. And I mean, to kind of get into the second question, yeah, I mean, the brand is definitely on an interesting path right now. We were on a very kind of certain growth, product investment path. And as you mentioned, we're literally losing billions. As we speak, losing millions probably. So there's a new reality, and it changes every week. I wish I could tell you exactly what the new brand strategy was. I probably wouldn't, because there's other competition on the
Save space.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, it's different than it was 3 weeks ago. So much was going on today with Europe banning Americans possibly, and the tri-state area doing quarantine, and every time you sort of feel like there's a decent trajectory of now we can start planning, you get thrown for another loop. So it's definitely, the brand will evolve. I don't think that we'll be the airline that we thought we were going to be by the end of the year. But it's going to be interesting. Just trying to stay ahead of the game as much as we can. So welcome to the ride.
Keeping our fingers crossed for sure. I know, Daniel, the loyalty program question is burning under your fingernails a little bit. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about the path to recovery for airlines. What's going to be really critical for what tactics are going to prove most important, and what are the assets that airlines that can fall back on. And I know that the loyalty programs are huge moneymakers. They're really cash cows. They've kind of morphed beyond just a frequent flyer program and are now almost like global currencies. To me, I always remind myself that it's still a marketing tactic. So I shouldn't make 3 stops. I should take the nonstop flight on a competitor airline, because otherwise that airline is winning, and this is just a marketing tactic. But I wonder if you think other industries, specifically in tourism, or other businesses in the tourism industry rather, could learn from this program, maybe create a loyalty program of their own. If this is now maybe perhaps the time to work on such a project, considering that it's one of the most resilient pieces of your business.
Yeah, I would say, yes to all of the above. The Mileage Plus program is an incredible piece of business all on its own. You've certainly seen other travel companies even go so far as to spin it off, their loyalty programs, into their own separate entities. It's no secret, it's been all over the news. We just managed to raise a few $1 billion kind of off of the back of the Mileage Plus program to help with our liquidity. And, it's all about survival right now. So to be able to have that massive asset with all of those people, and, yes, I won't mince words. It's definitely a marketing, it's a marketing platform. There was an article I even read just the other day. I can't remember where it was, but it was after kind of we raised the several billion off the Mileage Plus program, that said, really, most airlines are just a credit card hawking company that happens to fly people around. And we make a lot of money from that. And Chase is an amazing partner, and has been for many, many years. And it's going to continue to create opportunities. And one example is that I was just on a staff meeting call today, actually, or yesterday, where they were saying most people that are flying right now, us, at least at United, are not Miles Plus members. So it's even a crazier opportunity to grow the loyalty program. You know, people who are flying right now are people who are just kind of frustrated with being at home. They're looking for either the cheapest fare or the least amount of stops, to your point, Daniel.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're seeing a tremendous influx of just new people, which was a shock even to us. So, you know, I do, you know, someone to either become a partner of a loyalty program like ours or to, you know, start your own if you're in the right business. It certainly seems to make a lot of sense and it paid off, you know, for many, many years for United.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
that safe
I think
card
it's
holder,
so,
by the way.
yeah. No, I just think it's so
Okay.
timely, the to really, as a lot of businesses are looking at different revenue opportunities, even the DMO. I mean, we're on calls every day within our company trying to find ways for new revenue to come in. So I think it's, you know, nothing's out of the question at this point.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you if I can, Daniel. So you may know, Danny, that, you know, in San Francisco, we had a very pre-COVID, we had a very healthy international visitor mix. Obviously, that has now completely changed, and we have to pivot to more of a regional, domestic approach. But international is typically those visitors spend more, you know, they stay longer versus the domestic visitor. For all we know, the recovery will take a really long time, not just for us, but we wanted to get your feel, you know, promoting and really promoting the United brand around the world. What are some of the best practices that you see, if there are any, in this new environment, and how do you think we could respond to that in beneficial ways?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it is one of the worst statistics, you know, for us right now. It was great a year ago, but, you know, United, more than probably anyone else of the major US carriers, is internationally exposed. You know, depending on the season, up to 40% of our flights are international. So that is certainly hurting us. You know, all those planes you saw parked in Houston are, you know, the brand new Dreamliner fleet just sitting there. And, you know, so it's really a problem. And we do, you know, we work with our agency partners, our advertising agency partners, and our sales teams around the world. And, you know, we are pretty nimble in and out of markets as we need them. You know, I'm constantly meeting with our sales teams in the local markets and our network planning folks on, you know, what's weak, what's new, you know, what they're expecting a larger point of sale on. So I think it's all about communication with us. And then, you know, we can quickly go in and do a punch of advertising or PR or, you know, kind of whatever we decide, and go into those markets and, you know, try to prop them up as long as we need to, as long as there's money. But, you know, obviously partnering with folks like yourselves who have the exact same mission. I think the partnership, you know, versus going it alone just makes it that much stronger. And yeah, I mean, we do have local teams, marketing and sales in, you know, most major markets who are constantly on the ground, you know, talking to corporate clients, talking to OTAs and, you know, different travel agencies and travel managers. And, you know, it's a very grassroots effort in some cases, but you know, as much as we have the money, we try to, you know, within reason, put it out there.
Yeah. And we've worked with some of your in-market reps very successfully over the years. So hopefully we can do that again if things kind of come back. But we had a question to that extent from one of the attendees here. So now specifically in California, we're looking at that really domestic effort for the foreseeable future. Are you seeing any additional routes for California, like within California, maybe some more regional routes and small commuter routes that United could look at?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that happening. You know, I know there are other airlines that have put route announcements out faster than we have. You know, there's definitely a great debate going on at United about that and, you know, how fast we should be adding flights and especially new routes. You know, a lot of the incremental service you're seeing other airlines put out there right now is $49 fares, and there's no point. You know, we're running a business, and, you know, that's not going to pay the bills. So, you know, when we see demand from somewhere, and, you know, honestly, as we talk to other tourism boards and you know, other government entities, as, you know, they're ready and as we're ready, yes, we'll definitely be going after that. And, you know, hopefully we've been upgauging airplanes a lot faster than we thought we were going to. A lot of regional jets have been made mainline on certain routes. But then again, you know, this week you're seeing all the hotspots. So it's like, what do you do? So, you know, I know the network planning and revenue management folks are just in a constant swirl of, you know, up and down what to do. So, and I'm kind of waiting to market it all.
Do you think definitely international, regional, and most of the research is showing, you know, leisure is going to be leading this recovery. Business travel is going to be slow to recover. How well do you think United is positioned to deal with that? I know that, especially from a market like San Francisco, a lot of the bread and butter were these corporate clients. Those are your, you know, 1K members of the Mileage Plus, et cetera. Are you guys having those conversations about how you can capture more leisure passengers and what that looks like for summer and fall?
Yes, it's definitely going to be, you know, a marketing tactic that we have to take on. I mean, the good news is, you know, there was a time that United was in marketing and advertising solely focused on the business traveler, you know, really just completely concentrating on corporate contracts, business travelers, front of the plane. Our marketing strategy had changed over the last couple of years to really open up the aperture of who we're talking to, and you know, make sure that we're delivering a product and, you know, advertising products and services to you know, everyone on the plane. You know, we had the saying internally, every customer, every flight, every day. So, you know, and it changed a lot of the ways that we were marketing and the things that we did. But yeah, it's going to have to continue to evolve, you know, but it's a hard thing to do when, you know, we'd invested so much into some of the big international business markets. We were in the final phases of retrofitting, you know, all the wide bodies with the new Polaris product. And, you know, those are things that people aren't super eager to buy right now. So for better or worse, we're going to have to figure it out for sure.
Better chances for that upgrade though. That's good.
It's a great product though. The Polaris product, if somebody hasn't tried it, it's a wonderful product.
And it's well set up for social distancing, honestly. I mean, you're very
Yeah, you cannot be any more socially distanced from your fellow passengers, basically.
For sure.
Well, we're just about out of time, Danny. It's been a great pleasure. I really enjoy working with you in general. I think our partnership is really something that our whole organization looks up to, and that we hope to continue in the future. And thanks for all your insights. I think the audience enjoyed it. I know I did.
Yeah.
Best of luck for this recovery.
Yes.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much.
I'll be here. I'll hang out.
Yeah.
All right.
Now I kind of want to get on a flight, I have to say.
I know. I do. I miss the whole scene at the airports. It was nice to be in an airport for a minute, but it's not the same, I have to say. I mean, it's just not the same.
Well, maybe Melissa can talk about that. Speaking of airports, perfect segue.
I'm always glad to hear you say that you're happy to be in an airport, Daniel.
Yeah, you know, and none other than SFO. It's definitely my favorite one.
Nice, of course. Thank you.
Quick bio. Melissa is currently the Director of International Marketing Aviation Development at SFO International. She's been there since 2015. And prior to that, she worked for Iceland Air for 7 years, including
13.
13. Oh, sorry, 7 plus 5.
Yeah.
13 years, including 5 years in the UK, in Ireland, in their marketing and communications team. So welcome, Melissa. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. And Melissa is also a really good friend of ours. We've been working with Melissa ever since you started at SFO.
Yeah.
We do have a great relationship with your team, and kind of it's been exciting to work on a lot of new airline launches. Hopefully we'll get that back.
Definitely.
And work on those fun things again. But yeah, it's great to see you. And we were really excited to hear a little bit about what's happening at SFO. But before we do that, same little question for you. What was your most memorable flight and why? G-rated.
Well, it's so funny that Danny's most memorable flight was the Island Hopper, because my most memorable flight in 2006 was actually the Island Hopper. This is back when United was Continental. So on my honeymoon, I was in Palau and I was coming back, And me and my husband actually got stuck, and we were flying standby, as you do when you work for an airline. And we got stuck in Guam for several days. We were trying to get on a flight from Guam to Honolulu. Finally, on the third day, we still couldn't get on. And they're like, well, today we have the island hopper flight. Do you want to take it? And we're like, what is that? They're like, it's leaving in 30 minutes. Just go. So we get to the gate and we're like, what's this island hopper? And they're like, well, we stop in like 5 different islands on the way between Guam and Honolulu. And we're like, do you feed people? And they said, no. So there's a Domino's pizza at the airport in Guam, at least in 2006, bought a large pepperoni pizza. We then got on at 7:37 and we flew for the next 14 hours to places like Kajrai, Kwajalein, Majuro, Pohnpei, places we've never heard of, right? And it was amazing, like, in terms of like, wow, we get to see all these places, but it was also like 14 hours. And no one takes the whole flight. Like, you usually stop and like enjoy these islands. We were taking the whole flight. So it was memorable, maybe not in the best way.
Right, but we feed people now. Just
okay, you feed people now. Back in 2006.
I kind of want to take that flight. I've actually
different experience.
First of all, correction, I flew United yesterday. They're not feeding anyone right now. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I'm sure they are.
Wow.
That does make me miss the interline days as much as that.
I have so many stories. I could do a whole podcast on stories from flying standby.
Maybe we should do that. We should do like a aviation story podcast.
I think I would love that. I think you guys should.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything in between.
Well, it's probably a good time to interline for that matter, since load factor is obviously so down. Melissa, I was thinking we could start with a little prediction. So sure. COVID-19's obviously left global airline industry battered, as we were just demonstrating with all those statistics. Sure. What do you think are one or two key changes that will last beyond the crisis? Is this the end of change fees? That's something I'm voting for. Will route maps be redrawn? How might that be?
Yep. I think what we've been doing over the last couple of months is just talking to as many of our incumbent carriers as possible, including United. And I think what we're hearing from a lot of these airlines is at first, the airlines are going to be smaller than they were. I mean, 2019 was this sort of like golden era of aviation. Will we get back to those numbers? Yeah, probably eventually, but is it going to be like in the next 6 months to a year? No, definitely not. You're going to see some contraction for sure. The change fees, I would suspect that for a while, they'll be a little bit looser than before, but we'll probably see those creep back. I think one of the positive things we're seeing is the communication between the airlines and the airports, which you might have always thought has been amazing. With some carriers it is. It's such a good period right now. There's so much communication happening about how airports and airlines can work together. So I'm hoping in the future that you will see better, for instance, utilization of gate capacity, so maybe you won't show up at the airport and have those long lines that maybe you had in the past, because maybe as these flights start to come back, airports are really going to focus on how can we optimize these flights and make them fit really well so that passengers will have a really positive experience as the flights start coming back. I would say those are some of the things we'll see change. Definitely the route maps are going to be different for sure. One thing we're hearing a lot right now, and you hear this whenever there's a crisis in the airline industry, and we've had issues before, nothing like this, but we've had 9/11, we've had other times that the airline industry is, I think the good thing, the airline industry is full of people who are used to changes and challenges and who are used to tough times and who will always fight back, right? So the route maps are definitely going to be different, but what we're hearing a lot right now, it's all about protecting the hub. So, United is definitely going to be, you're going to see a lot of the flights from hub to hub with United, right? And then as people start coming back, they'll start going to some of those other places. But we're really lucky at SFO. We're a United hub. About 40% of our service is United service. So we've already seen a lot of the United flights starting to come back. And I think the interesting thing is there's definitely a willingness on the part of the carriers, including United, to get some of these international flights back. Right now, a lot of it has to do with the government restrictions, though. It's not so much the carriers who are like, oh, we're not going to do this yet. The willingness is there. Like, they want to try it. And there's even some passenger willingness there. But then there's the restrictions. And Hubertus, I know you mentioned earlier the IATA site. And that's something we're checking daily, right? We're seeing, okay, like, what's this country doing? What's this country doing? I mean, it seems like it's changing, every 24 hours.
And just quickly following up on that, so speaking of recovery, so what we've seen in research, and again, everything is super fluid and changes all the time, but it seems like this recovery will happen around regions versus specific countries, right? Is that something that you project for SFO as well?
Yeah, I think definitely it's going to be around regions. We're looking at some specific countries, but for us, it seems like, right now we're listening a lot about the EU. Like, what's the EU going to decide when it comes to American passengers coming in, right? That's like a big region. We obviously want, American passengers to be able to come into the EU. We'll see what happens. And yeah, we're looking at, sort of, we always look at Asia as a region and kind of Australia and New Zealand together as a region. And what's interesting is the carriers, and we have about 50 carriers at SFO that were with us before this all started happening. Certain regions are coming in and saying, we want to start soon. We want to start flights in June, in July. Whereas others, even back in like April, they're like, we're not even going to start again until September, and it's very regional that way. So it's interesting to see, and it's interesting to see how the different regions are handling it. And again, it's a wild west out there right now. It's every week it's sort of a different message that we're getting, and it's kind of this roller coaster, right? Like, it was really down. We were down 97% at SFO, right, with our flights. So it was a real big low, and then there was all this positivity, right, for a few weeks. All these flights were starting to come back, and we're going to do this. And I think we all felt that. And then these last few weeks, it's like, maybe you got a little bit too excited about that, So it's kind of one of those. And, every day is interesting. Every day is a challenge, but we'll just see what happens, really. That's kind of, we're taking it a day at a time, and doing everything we can as an airport to make the experience good for everyone, and working with and talking with as many of the carriers as we possibly can, just to keep that communication going.
Absolutely.
Do you think, I hope that it's making a big difference, because we're putting a lot of effort into it, including all the videos that we're making, all this content that we're creating about how SFO is handling the crisis and really leading the way, and all the different measures and procedures. Do you think that's really making a difference to carriers? Like, have you been hearing from them that they want to come back to SFO because they feel comfortable based on the leadership that the SFO has demonstrated, all the sanitation that's been put in place?
Yeah, I think the key word we're hearing from carriers is they want consistency. So they want consistency for their passengers, just like we do. So they want, if they have certain restrictions on the flight, such as, they have to wear masks, for instance. Well, at SFO, we were the first airport in the US to require everyone to wear masks. They want to see, just like we do, everyone having sort of this seamless travel experience, right? So we've been on calls with airports too. Like, we've been chatting with London Heathrow, for instance, about creating one of those air bridges you were talking about, right? We're also considering doing that with a few different places in Asia, where it's kind of, we all have sort of the same standards, so that the expectation is met across the entire travel journey, right? So, yeah.
Interesting. So one other question I have for you that I'm excited to ask is, so Daniel, we were talking about the loyalty program and, looking at different ways of driving revenue during this crisis, whether you're an airline, whether you're a DMO. Is the airport also looking at any different revenue sources? What do you think about airports becoming more than just a airport or a transportation center, becoming a destination in itself, becoming a conference space, maybe hosting other commercial activity there?
Yeah, I can, at SFO right now, we've really just been focused on sort of keeping everyone safe, and also sort of the recovery and working with the airlines, that are coming back. We have used the time for sure to work on certain projects at the airport, but a lot of those were already happening or in place. So at SFO, we definitely see the airport as a place where we want people to enjoy spending their time there, right? So we have our very sort of unique things like the yoga room. We have our WAG Brigade therapy animals. Just before this, we actually started opening some outdoor spaces at the airport. On the international G side where United is, we have a nice outdoor terrace area now where people can be outside. That works really well in these times, right? When people want fresh air, they want to be outside. We also have another one that's pre-security that we opened just before this all started happening, right? But definitely there's a trend. I mean, if you look at, like Changi Airport in Singapore, for instance, that's like a destination in and of itself. People go there even if they're not flying. They have the beautiful waterfall, they have the beautiful gardens, they have all these amazing restaurants, all these things you can do. We definitely at SFO, we look at things like that, but we also are confined by the space that we have, right? We can't really grow out any more than we have. So our focus is really on keeping the travel experience positive for people, and offering them things to do while they're waiting at the airport.
In Edmonton, they have a cannabis,
Do they? Okay.
growing, a huge building that they're growing cannabis inside.
And don't they have like a Target or a Walmart as part of the airport or something like that?
Yeah, I think Edmonton Airport is maybe supplanting Edmonton City.
Yeah. Just the airport. You don't even go into the city. Edmonton Airport is amazing, by the way, in terms of airports. We have such a great relationship with them. They have an amazing team.
They're fantastic. Yeah.
They're a really good airport.
They are awesome. I agree with that.
We had actually a quick question. I don't know if there's anything, but following up on that air bubble or this air bridge with Heathrow, is that something that could happen, you think? Or, I mean, there have been conversations, obviously, or is that still down the line?
I think it's still in the works, because I think what we're figuring out now is, what is that list of 10 things, 15 things, 20 things that we all can agree that we're both doing and we're both doing well. And once that is sort of agreed upon, and I think that's the phase that we're in right now with both airlines and airports, and also like the FAA, for instance, it's sort of this, okay, this is very new territory. We're all kind of trying to come up with the guidelines, how we're going to all do this together. And we still need a little bit more time to figure that all out.
Yeah, makes sense.
Do you think airlines can, I know we're almost running out of time, but do you think if airlines starts a flight, is it easy for them to pull it back quickly too in this environment, or is there quite a bit of investment to start that flight up?
With what we've been seeing is we have had carriers come back, and some of them, had daily flights before at SFO, and they're coming back, very gradually, once a week, and then maybe it's doing well, and now they're going twice a week or 3 times a week. We've also seen the opposite. We've seen some of them come back and say, hey, Air Canada, for instance, they brought back a flight, between SFO and Vancouver, and it was a daily flight, and everyone was really excited about it. But then the government regulations, they got extended, right? So now it's like, oh, we might have to scale that back. So for the incumbent carriers that we have, I think it's fairly easy from the airport side of things for them to kind of basically see what's happening and either pull back flights or add flights. Another interesting thing that we've been seeing happening at SFO is we have a lot of repatriation flights from carriers that we didn't have before. So that's been interesting for us. Vietnam Airlines, for instance, we've had quite a few flights from Vietnam Airlines, and that's a carrier we want to get eventually at SFO, right? We just found out Qatar is bringing a flight in on July 4th. They're working with the government of India on a repatriation flight. So this time it's obviously really terrible. We've lost so many flights, but it's also a time of opportunity where we're seeing carriers that we normally wouldn't see at SFO, and kind of, it opens that relationship a little bit more with those carriers. Hopefully they have a positive experience at SFO and can see, maybe a year, 2 years down the line, maybe they'll have like regular service at SFO.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's bring out those water cannons for that Qatar flight.
I know, right? Right. Although we can't
that.
because of drought, we don't do the water cannon.
I know. Maybe no water cannon, no.
I was like,
we'll do a slow clap,
But Melissa,
like
we've been
that.
working on that Doha flight for years, so maybe this is the start of a new.
I know, right? Yeah. And for all the av geeks out there, you got to. They're bringing the I think they're bringing the A350 in. So
Oh, nice.
like
That's a great airline,
yeah, really cool.
Do you
Wow.
have time for one more, Hubertus?
Sure. Yeah. Why
Okay,
not?
last one. We're almost out of time here.
This shows us we may need to do a follow-up on this one. Aviation is like,
I
Yeah.
know. It's a big.
I could talk about
Should have
it.
probably broke this down into a few different categories. We could definitely talk about the loyalty programs all day long for one. Melissa, what do you miss working for an airline, except for the interline privileges and being able to get on flights last minute with a pepperoni pizza? What else do you miss about? If you do, what else do you miss about?
Yeah, I mean, I had such a positive experience working for Icelandair. It was a family really to me. I was there for 13 years. I worked for them both in the US and in the UK for 5 years. I miss it for sure. As I get older, do I miss, flying every like 4 or 5 days somewhere in the world? No, I don't really miss that as much. But I do miss the adventure of it. And as much as I have these like interesting, terrible standby experiences, there's also sort of a romance to it as well. Being able to like show up at the airport and be like, oh, like let's go to this place. I also, with Icelandair, at least, this was a company that was very willing to try new things very quickly. It was sort of like a let's try this sink or swim mentality. And there were so many challenges that airline faced. When I was there, the big, I don't know if you remember 2010, the volcanic eruption in Iceland. That was a huge challenge. And within like 48 hours, that airline basically reworked itself. They moved their hub at one point to Glasgow because the ash cloud was like making it so difficult. And like an entire airline moved its hub to Glasgow, like in a week's time. So I miss that sort of like fast pace. But I also love working in an airport because an airport is maybe quite not as fast, but it's like working at a mini city. So there's just as many interesting things going on. And the fact that we have so many different carriers at SFO from all over the world, and you just see this like range of human emotion, like you were talking about, all the hugs and all of the like wonderful things you see at an airport. It's a great place to work too. So I've been lucky that I've been able to work on both sides.
And it's really exciting. Over the last few weeks, a lot of airlines have actually resumed service, if limited, but some of the international are coming back. So that's really a glimmer of hope, right?
It is very positive. Throughout June, we actually just put out a press release today about all of the flights that came back, including international flights in June. In July, it looks like we'll have several international destinations coming back. So it's exciting. They're coming back, and the carriers are really excited, and they're excited about all the content we're giving them. They're excited to hear about how the Bay Area has handled this whole crisis, and there's sort of a very favorable view of how we have handled the crisis. So that's really good news. And yeah, we have a lot of hope right now. Our big campaign at SFO is called Onward and Upward. Even if it's not sort of a straight onward line, we're always sort of moving forward. We're moving onward. We're facing the challenges, and we're gonna do what we can. We're gonna keep everyone safe, and when they travel, we hope that they have a good experience with us. So.
Absolutely.
Well, if you're gonna fly, choose SFO. Melissa, thank you so much. Pleasure.
You're welcome. It's so good talking to you guys, and good listening to you, Danny.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Danny and Melissa. And thank you everybody for attending the live version. As a reminder, this will be up on YouTube. This will be on the little microsite, and hopefully up soon on Spotify, so you can listen to us as you jog, or, well, no one's driving to work these days, but if you were to be driving to work, you could listen to us on your commutes. Hubertus, I thought that was wonderful. I feel like I learned a lot.
I think I always, and maybe I'm an AV geek now. I kind of would like to believe that, but obviously there's enough content to talk a lot more, and it's really interesting. It's an interesting time. It's a very challenging time, but also lots of good things happening in the aviation industry. So hopefully this will continue, and we can all get back to whatever that normal was, right?
As long as people keep those masks on, we'll keep moving onward and upward.
All right. I hope everybody. We had a few questions here but we'll answer those offline, I would say, right? Because we're really out of time now. But
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you for everybody, your engagement and your support, and we hope to see you again next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Have a
Stay
good
safe.
night.
Bye.